very much, Federation of Electric Vehicle for organizing this seminar, as well as giving me the opportunity to talk about our experience around electric mobility. And I must congratulate Federation of Electric Mobility for having. There are a lot of kind of conferences and seminars on electrification, which I have been witnessing since 2012, when all the discussions started happening around electric mobility. But this is one unique kind of conference wherein we are mostly focusing on around electrification. So I must congratulate and must welcome all of you who are who of the electric mobility industry. In the next 15 minutes of my presentation, I'm mostly going to talk about lithium-ion battery manufacturing value chain, the choice, challenges, and the landscape of India, what we already have, and how the entire future potential looks like of battery manufacturing in India. So in this presentation, I'm going to talk about three topics. One is the overview of entire lithium-ion battery manufacturing in India, and then moving on, I'll talk about current battery supply chain in India, and then as part of my presentation, we have prepared some recommendations as well. So let me begin with the overview of lithium-ion battery manufacturing in India. I think most of the things has been said by Dr. Agarwal. I'll try to not repeat the things which he has already mentioned. Towards the end of his presentation, he mostly talked about PLI scheme, PLI for ACC, which kicks off actually the lithium-ion battery manufacturing in India with 50 gigawatt hour of target. And the companies like Ola Electric and Reliance and the Rajesh Exports are in the process of building the lithium-ion cell manufacturing in India. So let me briefly talk about the kind of the potential from the electric vehicles as well as from the other part of the value chain what we have in the lithium-ion battery manufacturing. So if we look at the estimations, it goes beyond 230 gigawatt hour, and more than 100 gigawatt hour is going to come from the electric vehicle itself by 2030. Are we ready for this kind of supply? So if you look at the kind of evolution, there's such kind of battery chemistry coming around 230 gigawatt hour, 100 gigawatt hour only from the electric vehicles. So what kind of batteries are going to be prominent in India is very, very important to understand. So there are several options at this point in time, and all of us are debating about which battery chemistry. The scale is very, very important. Proximity to the resources are very, very important. So in order to tap the challenge of scale, we need to understand what kind of batteries are going to be in India. So if you look at the current dynamics, India is dominated by LFP and NMC chemistry. In two-wheeler applications, mostly it's NMC chemistry. In three-wheeler, in the passenger car and the buses segment, there are exceptions, but mostly it is LFP chemistry because of the cost considerations and the availability of raw material as well as the safety issues. So predominantly we have two options, LFP and NMC chemistry. Now, as Dr. Agarwal was talking about, what makes sense for India is very, very important. For example, one very, very important criteria is localization or the local value add. Government of India is very, very clear. Electrification makes only sense if we have local value chain or if we have local value add. Under the PLI scheme, the local value addition criteria has been kept around 60%. So if we consider two predominant chemistries, which are LFP and NMC chemistry, and if you look at the data, 21% cost contribution is from the cell cathode for LFP chemistry, which goes up to 42% for NMC chemistry. And the cathode is a bigger problem than other part of the value chain. So in terms of the theoretical possibility of localization, it is around 69 to 90% for the LFP chemistry. And for NMC chemistry, it's around 43%, majorly because of the cost contribution and the challenges around cathode. So I'll talk more about the upstream supply chain, because until or unless we have not very developed upstream supply chain, electrification is a very, very big challenge. So let's have a look on the distribution of global metal processing and the production. Now India faces a significant competition from different countries, mainly from the China, because China has been very active uh, in capturing the kind of metal production, and wherever, for whatever metals they are not able to go ahead and capture on the production part of it, they have already captured on the metal processing part of it. So for any country which aspires to go very big in electrification, it's a very big challenge, and obviously that challenge is there for India. So India has to think about building the metal processing as well as wherever they have the metal production possibility. Probably we can start with the metal processing part, which is slightly easier given the kind of experience we have in the past. So what are the challenges? Challenges are very well known, that the raw materials are very big challenge, right? As I mentioned, that the 60% value add criteria, without localizing the upstream supply chain, it is going to be really very difficult. So if you look at lithium, the cobalt or the manganese, majority of them are not available in India. So how we can tap this market is, because if you don't have the reserves, then it's a very big challenge. India very well understand and positions itself like they need to have government to government collaborations and the G2C collaboration, government to large corporation collaborations. And there are NALCOs, NMDC on the model of ONGC Videsh, which operated in oil long back. They are trying to invest in the refineries and claim them ourselves. The good positive news which is coming is like there is a possible reserve in Jammu and Kashmir and some part of the Rajasthan, but I think it's going to take almost a decade when it starts feeding into the manufacturing. But still, at least after a decade, there is a ray of hope that India can have its own raw materials, especially lithium. Now, second part, what I want to explain here is, the kind of activity which is happening from the companies which are there in this market. So that gives a very good indication about how this market is going to look like in future. For example, if I look at what kind of companies are interested in investing in lithium-ion battery manufacturing. Initially, the companies which announced that they are going to have lithium-ion battery manufacturing, probably they had very limited understanding about the challenges of having a lithium-ion battery manufacturing. The thought was very simple, how you operate in normal component business, that you own the land, you have the money, you have the connection with the customers, and then you bring the technology from outside. But in India, the challenge in lithium-ion battery is, not only in India, but globally, that nobody who has the technology is ready to share the technology. Now the licensing and other things have started happening, but earlier it was not there. So now if you cannot access the technology, probably it becomes very difficult. So with the good move from the PLI scheme from Government of India, there are 5 type of companies which are very active in India. One is the PLI linked manufacturers. For example, I talked about Rajesh Exports, Ola Electric, and Reliance. Then you have traditional manufacturers entering into this game, which is very important. For example, until or unless you have a company like Exide and Amara Raja not very active in this domain, it's very difficult to utilize their experience. They know how this battery business operates. That's a good news. Then there are non-traditional battery manufacturers. For example, Mahindra has some intention. JBM is coming up with 3 gigawatt-hour of their NMC-based chemistry, which they want to feed into their buses segment and also tap on other vehicle segments. Tata Motors obviously is a lot in news. Then there are non-traditional battery manufacturers, like smaller ones like Exicom, Acme, Lucas, TVS, etc. Then we have startups which are very active, and mostly they are serving into two-wheeler and three-wheeler segment, because there is the volume. At this point in time, lithium cell manufacturing is not happening, but very soon, with kind of presence of and the investments which are coming from such players, is going to be the reality. Not only the cell manufacturing, but also in the assembly and cell parts, there are a lot of industry players which are active. For example, in anode, I think we all know that Epsilon and HEG and kind of Himadri are at an advanced stage. Even some of them are ready to serve the global markets to get this scale. Then electrolyte and separator. In electrolyte, there are companies like GFL and Neogen and Mitsubishi Chemical which are doing several activities in India. And separators, you have Intech and Alox, which is now rebranded, are kind of companies which are very active. So with the presence of companies in entire value chain, and all of them are not startups, they are giants. Also, some of them are having the technology, having the manufacturing unit outside. So probably it gives a very good hope for all of us. Moving on, if you look at the left hand side of the chart, you'll find that Indian companies or companies, any company from having a manufacturing in India doesn't features here in top 10, 15 lithium ion battery manufacturers. But if you look at the right hand side, the future looks bright, and there are going to be companies with at least gigawatt hour level of scale in phases, obviously, 5 to 6 years. Now, the most important part I think I want to talk about is the kind of localization which is needed. In the beginning of my presentation, I talked about India requires 60% of the value add. It's not, by the way, it's not localization, it's value add. Value add means when you're doing the calculations, you are including your margins also as part of the local value add, which definitely will reduce with over the period of time when you have the fierce competition. At this point in time, there are a very limited competition. Obviously, the requirement is in terms of this 60% value add, not in terms of what component you are going to localize. But until or unless anode, cathode, electrolyte and separators are localized in India, India is not going to achieve 60% of the value add. So let's have a look. What are the choices and challenges in each segment, and it will give you a very good understanding about where we are at this point in time and how much India is going to take to have real lithium ion battery manufacturing in India. So anode, which is little easier to have kind of manufacturing in India, and players are at an advanced stage. Players like Epsilon, HEG and Himadri are very active in this domain. So what are the key considerations for them to have manufacturing in India? Everybody needs a scale, right? So what they are trying to get a scale is there is no single player, or there are no enough players who can give enough demand in Indian market. So what they are doing, they are going global, they are going outside India, they are getting approvals. Once they have approvals from global organizations, then they want to capitalize on that in India to achieve this scale. Exports the lead demand. So not only the domestic demand, but until or unless they tap on exports is going to be difficult. Then Indian anode manufacturing are favorable because everybody looks for one alternate option. There are bigger challenges in terms of the cathode manufacturing in India. First one is like lack of clarity on demand. So any cathode manufacturer, when intends to have a manufacturing unit in any country, looks for mainly two things. One is the proximity to the resources, and second is about scale, or in the demand surety. India by policy doesn't give any kind of quantitative target by 2030 or 2040 we are going to convert this much into electric. So they don't have surety in terms of demand. Resource proximity is a different challenge. So many companies are actually choosing countries like Malaysia and other Southeast Asian countries instead of India. So that is a big challenge. Lack of government push and schemes. So government basically incentivizes battery manufacturers, not the upstream manufacturers. That's a challenge. And then there are other technical expertise challenges. Local companies in India don't have that kind of expertise. Now, electrolyte manufacturing, third major part of the battery value chain is electrolyte manufacturing. Again, the availability of raw material, if you look at the salt, solvent and additives, other than salts, additives and solvents are not locally manufactured or locally available in India. But if you again divide this value chain, the supply chain of the electrolytes, you will find many companies active in this domain. So maybe in next 5-6 years, it might be happening in India. Last, I would like to talk about the separator manufacturing. Again, the similar challenges. Long-term demand, as I mentioned, for cathodes is not there. Raw material supply, raw material availability to make separators is a challenge. Then wet and dry process separator also becomes a challenge. But yes, Neogen has recently invested a lot. Dynamic and Intech are some of the other companies active in this domain. With this, I would like to summarize my presentation with some kind of recommendations, what we have prepared. PLI scheme definitely is very, very important, and it is going to be game changer, that is for sure. But there are two things which probably going forward Federation of Electric Vehicles can think about is requesting to the Government of India to include MSMEs also in this. Obviously, the idea was to have bigger manufacturers so that they get this scale. But MSMEs has to be included. Second is there has to be a kind of a scheme which incentivizes upstream supply chain, like cathode, anode separators, and electrolytes. Second recommendation which I want to talk about is restricting, when I talk about the barriers, it can be tariff and non-tariff. So we think that tariff barriers are not going to work a lot. So we need to have non-tariff barriers, mainly ensuring the quality of the component. Then in additional policy interventions, allow GST benefits and promote the exports. So that is all. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Preetesh Singh, for the information-driven presentation and enlightening the audience today. May I please request Dr. Rajiv Mishra, National President, Federation of Electric Vehicle Association, to please come up on the dais and share a token of appreciation on behalf of Informa Markets India. May I also please request Mr. Praveen Sood, Chairman, Regnant Energy Solution, to please come up on the dais and join hands with Dr. Rajiv Mishra to share the token of appreciation to Mr. Preetesh Singh, Expert Case and Alternative Powertrains.